Welcome to Anti-Fiction. This is a weekly nonfiction podcast where each week I, Christian Yates, select a topic, and then I invite two guest hosts to come and talk about that topic. My guest hosts this week are Dee Burdine. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. And Brandon Browns.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
This is the first episode we're releasing after Christmas. But it is not Christmas for us yet. So, merry early and late Christmas.
Yeah.
So
happy December 15th.
Yes. Is it the 15th already? Jesus Christ.
Is.
All right. I thought it was the 14th still, but all right. So our topic today is cryptids. And as Dee keeps saying, Christmas cryptids. Although mine has nothing to do with Christmas.
Mine doesn't either.
No, mine doesn't either. You could probably put
Merry
a wreath on it,
Cryptidmas.
Merry Cryptidmas.
Keeping the crypt back in Christmas. Right?
The Crypt Keeper.
Yes.
Remember him? Anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, I actually did two cryptids today. They're both kind of small stories. One of them is definitely not a real thing. The other is probably not a real thing. So, there's no substantial evidence for the one, and the other has been fairly well disproven at this point.
We'll see. Yeah,
Right.
One might turn
Leave
up
your
in our front
minds
yard right
open.
now.
Yeah.
That is fair. That is fair. So the first one I did is the sky fish, which is as dumb as it sounds. So first of all, they're also called flying rods or just rods. And so basically, they're invisible things. They're invisible to the naked eye that lives somewhere up in the stratosphere. That's
Okay.
their place of origin, I guess,
Okay.
and that's just kind of where they live, although they have been seen much lower to the ground. But for the most part, up in the sky, hence the name skyfish. So the first sighting ever of the skyfish, probably, was on August 12th, 1883. An astronomer named Jose Bonilla was working at an observatory in Cerro de la Bufa, and so he's taking pictures of sunspots and observed nearly 300 unidentified flying objects crossing the sun. Yes.
It's like a swarm of them.
Yes. So there's actually a picture here, and you can Google this, listeners. But so that is one of the pictures of objects crossing the sun, right?
Yeah.
It really just looks like a grainy picture, and then somebody pointed an arrow at what appears to be an object.
You could say it's an unidentified flying object.
Yes, you could say that. I would not, but you could say that. So he shows this to the scientific community, and they're like, all right, no, that's stupid bullshit, whatever. Either the photographs were faked, or it was just some kind of issue with the imaging, whether it was when he took the picture or when he printed on the wet plates. But basically, the scientific community was like, that's not a thing. It's not a UFO. It's not if it's an animal, it's a high-flying goose. It's not some new thing that you've just discovered. But it is considered the first UFO sighting in modern Mexican history.
Really?
Whoa,
Yes.
UFO.
Yeah. So
Let's get back to aliens.
it's always aliens when you're
Always
here.
aliens.
But for the last, 130 years, people have looked into the skyfish as a possible cryptid. So in the 1990s, more anomalies in the sky were recorded on film, and that's when the classification of skyfish started to become a possible cryptid, or at least some kind of unknown animal up in the sky. They look like these little rods that range from a few inches to a few feet in length.
Oh.
Often they have like glowing lights or something like that. They some kind of bioluminescence, and often have like a spiraled, almost like fins. It looks like fins. That's why they're called skyfish, right?
Okay.
They look like fins that kind of wrap around, spiral and corkscrew around the rod.
Oh.
Right. So in 2016, Alberto Ignacio Alejo Ibarra. That's full name.
That's a
I
lot
missed
of-
the last one. It was on
yeah.
the next line. So he took a picture of the skies over his hometown of Guadalajara, Mexico. The video shows a translucent object with a tail appearing to swim over the skies of Jalisco. So it moves kind of lazily through the air in what looks like a manta ray or a fish. Yeah, just kind of glide like a fish would swim in the ocean. Only it's up in the sky. Now these fish, these sky fish, have been like looked at as possible alien, extraterrestrial, or paranormal entities, and the like possible connections to Roswell, New Mexico, things along those lines. For the most part, though, they're seen a lot of the time in like Mexico and Central and South America.
Okay.
For some reason, just not very much anywhere else. At the time, anyway.
It's the part of the sky that they like.
Yeah. That's the specific part of the stratosphere that they survive in is
Over Mexico.
over Mexico.
In Central America. Got it.
Stratosphere has environment, apparently.
Yes. So there have been like you were meant what investigation discovery. It wasn't that one.
Expedition Unknown.
Yeah, there you go. So there have been shows like that have tried to cover the sky fish. And there was actually a video in 2008, I believe,
Okay.
of cliff divers who, they dive down into the cliff and like they've got it all on video, and you see these fucking skyfish all around them, darting all around. Right? So here's the thing. The reason that they're not visible to the naked eye, but they are visible to cameras, is because it's like fucking moths and birds and shit. That's all it is. Is
They
the shutter
reflect off it.
speed.
Yes.
The shutter speed of cameras, like the insect or bird is moving faster than the camera is picking them up. So with high speed cameras, you can very clearly see that it's a moth or a bird. But for literally 130 years, people have been like, it's some new kind of thing.
Oh.
People are like, it's ghosts, it's aliens, it's a new kind of animal. It's not.
It's like the mayflies and stuff
Yes.
that come out in the swarms and
Yeah.
things like that. But they don't know what they are?
Well, so there was one of the things I was watching had like they were trying to find skyfish. So they set up these high-speed cameras and caught one on camera. And they're like, there it is right there. It's got the classic corkscrew little whirly
Yeah.
thing with the rod. And then they slowed that down and clearly see a moth making its way across the camera.
Oh, wow.
And because of the way its wings beat, that's what causes that corkscrew look.
Oh.
And then, the body of the moth
Yeah.
creating the rod.
Okay.
And that's why they're able to sort of dart around and everything.
Okay.
It's like a panorama picture of a moth.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like if
That's
you took a
cool.
panorama picture and somebody moved their arm and it makes their arm look really
Yeah.
elongated or
Yes.
whatever. That is the exact optical phenomenon that
for
causes
crying out
this.
loud.
Right,
So,
right.
but for
It's kind of cool. Yeah.
yeah, it is
it's a
cool.
cool idea.
But it's not.
That's progress.
It is. It's progress. It's not a conspiracy, as some have said, and it is not. It's not a cryptid.
Yeah, maybe that's just what they want us to think. The skyfish.
Right? Yeah. That the government would fucking say that. And there were people that were like, and I think the reason that this played into the like conspiracy theory behind it and the whole ties to Roswell, New Mexico, is that people for years were saying like, it's either some kind of comet that you caught on film, or one of the things I saw said that it was a piece of a weather balloon.
Again, the weather balloons.
Every goddamn time the weather balloons, in the Battle of Los Angeles and Roswell, New
I
Mexico.
don't even know why we have other kinds of aircraft. We have plenty of weather balloons that can take care of everything. Yeah.
So I think that it was the allegation that they were just pieces of weather balloon that sort of spurred on the conspiracy that the government was keeping some new kind of animal from us or something. For some reason.
The secret zoo.
Right, yeah.
Has the flying, the windfish.
Yeah, well, they want to, because one of the 10 corporations that controls the world was trying to open up a zoo in the stratosphere.
Right.
Or maybe NASA was trying to start one on the ISS, and
For a minute there, I'm going, really?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Coca-Cola sponsors the Strato Zoo.
Monsanto.
Yeah, Monsanto. Yeah, there you go. But anyway, so that's the story of the skyfish.
Okay.
There's nothing to it. It's an optical illusion. That's why you can't see them with the naked eye.
Right.
It's a moth or it's a bird.
So you can see them with the naked eye. It just looks as you would expect it to look.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why when you're filming one and you're like, whoa, where the fuck did that come from? Well, it was there the whole time.
Right.
It was a moth. Yeah. So the other story that I did was the Mongolian death worm.
Ooh.
Right, which so this one might be a thing. It could be a thing. So allegedly, the Mongolian death worm exists in the Gobi Desert. It's between 2 and 5 feet long and thick-bodied. Right, yeah. Very, very deadly. It is extremely venomous to the point where if you touch it, you could die instantly. Yeah. So the creature first came to Western attention as a result of Roy Chapman Andrews' 1926 book On the Trail of Ancient Man. The American paleontologist was not convinced by the tales of the monster that he had heard at a gathering of Mongolian officials. Quote, none of those present had ever seen the creature, but they all firmly believed in its existence and described it minutely. So, again, this is another creature that was searched for years. Not quite as long, I suppose, as the skyfish, but let me see here. In 1922, a quote from, so this is a quote from On the Trail of Ancient Man, based on a story that happened in 1922. Quote, it is shaped like a sausage, about 2 feet long, has no head nor leg, and it is so poisonous that merely to touch it means instant death. It lives in the most desolate parts of the Gobi Desert. It lives underground, naturally. And it sort of slithers under the ground. You can actually see the trails that it leaves, kind of like moles, like tremors. Yes.
That's what I'm thinking too.
And actually, in 1990 and 1992, inspired by the novel Dune, in which fictional sandworms could be brought to the surface by rhythmic thumping, Ivan Mackerly led a small group of companions into the Gobi Desert to search for the worm and constructed a motor-driven thumper that utilized small explosive charges in a bid to find the animal. So they're trying to draw it out, which I feel like if you can touch it and die instantly, it's a bad fucking idea.
Yeah.
It might be. And if you need to use explosives to find it too.
Yes. There have been multiple expeditions like that. There was one in 2005 where a zoological journalist tried to mount an expedition. They found nothing. In Richard Freeman, the journalist, his conclusion was that the tales of the worm's powers had to be apocryphal and that reported sightings likely involved an unknown species of worm lizard, probably not the Mongolian death worm itself.
Ye of little faith.
Right? It was featured on the series Beast Hunter as well on the National Geographic Channel. But anyway, in 1983, a specimen of Tartar sand boa was shown to locals who claimed to have seen the Mongolian death worm, and they confirmed that this was the animal that they called the Mongolian
Really?
deathworm. Now the thing is, most interpretations of the Mongolian deathworm are red. There's actually an artist rendering right here, right there. That's what he would look like. Now the Tartar sand boa is not red. That's the top picture there.
Pretty regular snake
It
color.
looks like a sand snake. It camouflages into the sand. So I don't know what would make them think that must be it.
It's very sandy. Oh, yeah, I see. This picture's kind of red. Maybe
It's a little
it's
red.
one
sure.
of many pictures, and I don't even know if that is
it's
the same thing. Oh, this is Indian sand boa.
So this one might be real, possibly. Here we go. I was trying to find this quote here. Apparently the worm can also kill at a distance, either by spraying a venom at its prey or by means of electric discharge.
What?
So that's the weirdest part for me, is that it's some kind of
the venom I can possibly
yes,
see, but the electric discharge?
It's like an electric eel, but instead of having water to conduct the electricity, it has sand?
Right. Yeah, well, sand is a great conductor of electricity, I guess.
No, I don't think so.
Probably not, no.
No, because it's too dense. I mean, there's nothing to...
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Right.
I would buy the venom, but not so much the electrical discharge.
I know, like when lightning strikes sand, it kind of
Makes
solidifies
it fuses
Oh,
it into
yeah,
glass.
sure. Yeah. That is.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it would go too far.
Right.
Depends on how far down they are.
Right. Maybe it electrifies the sand and then turns you into glass, and that's what kills you.
And there you go.
That sounds a little
Christian.
Listen, it may or may not even
real
be
to me.
real.
I
So who knows?
But the sightings. I mean, were there a lot of sightings from these people all over?
Constantly, for years and years and years. But the thing is that there may not have been any or many actual sightings.
It's word of mouth.
It's word of mouth through trade routes and things like that. Like, hey, I have a friend whose brother knows somebody that this happened to, and then it just sort of spreads and contorts, and it's like, I personally saw it.
Which dilutes the absolute.
Right.
Did it really happen?
Yep. It could have just been somebody lying
or misinterpretation or whatever. But that's it. That's the way it is with most of the cryptid stories out there.
It is
people debunk it because, well, I've never seen it, so it can't be that.
Right.
I kind of wonder if there's any hey, I saw a Mongolian sandworm over there. You shouldn't go there, because you might die via horrible poisonous electric death, and now people stay away from that area for a while.
Right. Oh, yeah, that is true. It could be like a secret military base or something that they're trying to ward people
in
off
the middle of the Gobi Desert.
That is true. Yeah. It could be like a
pyramid with a diamond on top.
There you go. Yeah.
Some guy who wants to be left alone. Is his house?
That's where they're hiding the Ark of the Covenant, and they're like, it's surrounded by Mongolian death.
It only takes a second, folks, for us to go off.
Those are my stories. Like I said, they're just two little short ones. The skyfish, which is not a thing. If you see a skyfish, you are wrong. But if you see a Mongolian deathworm, I would not take that chance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do not touch it.
Do not touch it. You might get, poisoned or
dead,
electrocuted, or So
dead would be good.
So yeah, that's the stories that I brought with me today. Brandon, what have you brought with you today?
Well, I brought the story of the Cardiff Giant.
Okay.
Right. So in 1869, a 10-foot tall stone man was unearthed. Right.
Okay.
And people were digging a well for a Mr. William Newell. Right.
Okay.
So what Mr. Newell did after finding this 10-foot tall man was he set up a tent, hired some people around there to be like, hey, come see the Cardiff Giant. And he charged people a quarter to come see it. And that was quickly raised to 50 cents.
Well, supply and demand.
Right.
There were only so many tickets.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Only so many people can come in and just look at the giant a day.
Right.
But the question was asked, is this a petrified man? Or is this a statue of some sort? And then if you pull it up, it kind of, I would say it looks a little bit more like a man. But
so they didn't try to crack the stone to see if a dude was inside of the stone.
No.
Right.
So it could have just been a sarcophagus. It could have just been.
Nope. Wait till you see the picture.
Yeah, let me pull up a picture of it.
Okay.
it looks more like a man than a sarcophagus because you can see like ribs.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And such, right?
Yeah, and you can see there's some dongage going on there too.
Right. He actually looks a little embarrassed that that's going on.
Yeah, he's like, "Don't take my picture. I'm new."
Right, which I think is kind of funny. But seeing as it is a stone statue. Well, how did this get there? It turns out that it had been created by a Mr. George Hall.
I thought you were about to say the Newell guy was he made it himself, buried it, and then ordered a well to be dug.
Well, things like that have happened.
Actually, Christian,
Oh, buddy.
Mr. Hull was William's cousin.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay.
So here's what Hull did. He hired some people to carve out a 12 by 4 by 2 block of gypsum, which is really soft rock, easy to carve. And he said, "Oh, it's going to be a monument, right?" Now, legend has it these people were paid in beer. I think that's really funny.
I think that's great.
That's
right?
how. That's the only way I accept payment.
Hey, get me a block of gypsum. I'll give you a keg of beer. They're like, all right, why not?
Why not? Yeah.
So they moved the block to his farm. It broke several wagons and a bridge along the way.
Okay.
And anyone who was questioning, oh, it's going to be for a monument. Oh, it's going to be for a monument, right? And when he got there, he hired a guy to carve it into a statue.
Okay.
And he swore him to secrecy. Now, I don't know what this entails. Maybe it's the pinky promise, or swore him on the Bible or something. But who knows?
It's a spit shake.
Right.
Yeah.
He spent about $2,600 on this whole process. Right.
Okay.
And
he made it up 1 quarter at a time.
He made it up 1 quarter at a time. Well, he actually made quite a profit. We're gonna get there.
Oh fuck! All right.
It's he spent about that would be $48,000 in today's money to get the whole thing going, right? So to make it look genuine, they stained it with like all sorts of acids and inks and such, and they battered it, and they even took like a rod with nails in it, and like beat it to get like kind of a grainy look at it.
All right.
And
to weather it,
right?
Make it look older.
Right. So they dug the hole and they put it in there and they filled it back up and they waited a whole year just to forgot.
People were like, "What the fuck ever happened to that monument they were building?
Yeah, what happened?
I don't know. I broke 3 wagons trying to get that shit to them.
Wouldn't have put it together.
Well, eventually they kind of do, but so eventually he hires some people to dig a well, right there, right where they buried it,
right,
and of course they find it, and they're like, "Whoa, what's this big old statue?" Now, scientists were initially pretty baffled and awestruck. They didn't think it was a fake for a while. They didn't think it was a man. They thought it was more likely to be a statue. But eventually they'll re-examine it. Now, after some time, he sold it to some businessman. Right? And there was a Mr. Hannum in there. And from Mr. Hannum, P.T. Barnum himself tried to buy it.
Yep. All right.
The world's greatest showman.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. The world's something.
Yep. And they refused. They refused
scum
to
of
sell
the
it.
earth.
Oh yeah. There's some more content artistry from P.T. Barnum coming up here. Because here's what Barnum did. He hired a man to secretly cover the giant in wax and create a plaster.
Okay.
And he made this, and he made a model replica of the giant, which he then claimed was the original.
Oh, for fuck's sake. All right.
So we've got a model of a fake giant that P.T. Barnum is charging people to
see. What he's got there is the stone replica. You'll see how his is a little smaller. Mine is a little larger, which makes it the real one.
Mine's the real fake giant. That's
now at this point, did P.T. Barnum know that it was fake, or he just was like, I want that fucking thing.
I think he just wanted
to go in there and you're gonna make a wax cast of it.
Yeah.
At this point, they didn't know it was a fake yet. Like
you're gonna give him 3/4 and you're gonna go in there.
Yeah, they thought that it was a giant. And once there had been giants that had roamed the earth and such,
Which there had, actually.
Right? Yeah. No, I read Goliath. Yeah. Yeah.
Remember the last one with the really tall?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, with the alien hybrids. That is true.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
You're okay. So Hannum, the current owner of the real statue,
Yeah.
started to a lawsuit against Barnum for this whole thing, for claiming that his was the fake. The judge's response is pretty good. He said, if you can get your giant to testify that it's real, then you can win the lawsuit. So he did.
And then that's when they turned the stone giant into a marionette. They carved his jaw away. And it, yeah, I'm the real one.
I am real.
I'm a real boy.
I'm a real giant boy.
That's ridiculous.
Anyway, later that year, Hull confessed to the whole thing, and scientists took a closer look at it, and they're like, "Oh, yep, chisel marks, everything." And there are also some geologists were like, "Why would you even dig a well there? It's not a good place to dig a well."
You know, that's what the contractors said. They were like, "No, you shouldn't build a well here. I want the well right the fuck here."
Yeah, it looks good. It's an aesthetic well.
Close enough.
It's
Yeah.
for the
I'm gonna build a nice gazebo around it. It's gonna be great.
feng shui of the well.
Yeah.
Feng shui. Anyway, Hull made a huge profit off the whole thing, but he lost it all. So he tried to do the exact same thing again.
No, for fuck's sake!
Hey, it's okay. No one fell for it this time.
Wow.
Oh, here's the real kicker. The face of the giant was modeled after Hull.
Oh
Oh,
dear.
God in heaven.
No one noticed
They
for the
couldn't.
entire several years.
I can't find anybody else to model for this giant.
Yeah.
Fucking do it
Or
yourself.
just do it for me.
notice.
And then he's
Don't
just
alter any of the features, though, Mr. Artist.
He's just
you know?
standing there next to the giant, still take a still. The giant was pretty much the same face.
Well,
I mean,
well,
it was
when the-
beaten
when
and
the-
weathered and
When the
stuff.
stone
Yeah.
golem died, he was reincarnated.
as the
As
Cardiff
Hull.
Yeah,
giant,
maybe
yeah.
that's it. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why he wanted to dig a well there.
Yes.
To find his previous body.
Oh god.
That is fucking ridiculous.
Wow.
Anyway, so I like the idea of like finding a petrified giant, but I like the idea of the whole scam and con artistry
Yeah.
going on
With
through
not
that
just
again.
one person, but two.
But two,
Yeah.
right?
Two fucking liars.
Yeah, and they're both
And
still on
tried
display
it a
somewhere or
third
the other.
time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what is the kicker. That is so funny.
I've never heard that story before.
That is the Cardiff giant, and that's a very funny one.
That's a good one.
Heaven.
That's a good one.
All right. Well, and of course, P.T. Barnum wormed his way
Getting
in there.
into
Of
it,
course.
yeah. Jeez.
Well, so D, what you told me the name of it, and I've already forgotten. But it sounded fucking ridiculous from what I remember.
The Beast of Bray Road.
Yep. Yep. Okay, here we go.
Okay. This is actually one of the most covered cryptid events or occurrences of most of them out there besides Bigfoot,
Okay.
because there have been so many
Bigger than Nessie?
almost as big as Nessie,
Okay. All right.
Okay.
and because there are so many witness accounts, and
Okay.
it takes place here in the United States,
Okay.
and it's been seen. There were sightings of it in 1936. There were sightings in 1964 and 72, but the ones that are the most famous actually started in the late 80s, like 89 into the 90s.
Okay.
And they took place near the towns of Delavan and Elkhorn in Wisconsin. Many cryptozoologists have decided to label it as some type of Bigfoot in order to avoid dealing with the scientific absurdities involving werewolves.
All right. Okay. So it's either
go.
Bigfoot or werewolf.
Well, it doesn't meet any of the criteria for a Bigfoot because it doesn't have the smell, it doesn't have the same demeanor, it doesn't
Okay.
have the same shape and size.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's more canine, less ape-like.
People who have seen it know that and encountered the creature believe that it is a more canine cryptid instead.
All right.
So some researchers consider it to be identical to a kind of Wisconsin Bigfoot named the Bluff Monster or the Eddie. Other names have included the Bear Wolf, the Indigenous Dog Man, but Native Americans refer to it as Wendigo.
Oh,
Okay.
Wendigo.
It is considered the most famous of modern werewolf stories. It has been in the media regularly and even had a low-budget movie based on its legend. You can look it up on YouTube and stuff. But because of the numerous witness accounts who have claimed to see the Beast of Bray Road, there is far greater evidence supporting it than any other werewolf legend. Most cryptozoologists don't take shapeshifters seriously, because there is, unless you're on the fringe of the group who are more into like a paranormal
Right.
part of it. That being said, as with other werewolf reports, there is a tendency to discard the circumstances and details of witnesses that don't fit with the closer, the chosen hypothesis, such as an escaped pet wolf or a large feral dog, a bear, or some other creature that is known to exist. In other words, the werewolf-like characteristics are due to mistaken observations or sheer panic that caused exaggerations, of the true features, or that a costume prankster is behind it all.
So now, and you might be getting to this, but is the creature itself, is it bipedal or does it?
We'll get to it. And
Okay.
and most of the time, it may start on its all four legs, but it is known to walk upright.
Okay.
Yes, and it uses its paws or its hands like a person would. So Wisconsin is no stranger to werewolf stories, which was kind of surprising to me, but they do go back a long way. And if you've been to Wisconsin, it's a lot of forestry. There's so much forestry and land out there that,
It's just forests and
it
cheese
is,
out
it
there,
is.
really.
And cows, yes, because of the cheese.
Right.
So that being said, let's go ahead and listen to some of the encounters with the Beast of Bray Road.
Okay.
So the first one, the first werewolf sighting to go public occurred, perhaps fittingly, on October 31st, 1999.
Naturally.
A young woman named Dorothy Gibson from nearby Elkhorn was driving along Bray Road near Delavan. As she neared the intersection of Hospital Road, she leaned over to change the station on her radio when she felt her right front tire jump off the ground as if she had hit something. Concerned, she stopped the car and got out to see what it was. Finding nothing on the roadway behind her car, she began to look around. As she peered into the darkness, she suddenly saw a dark, hairy form racing toward her.
Oh,
no.
fuck. Nope.
She did not see what the figure looked like from the distance at which she was standing. It was about 50 feet away. But she did see the figure was quite bulky, and she would later compare the form to someone who works out continually with weights.
It looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I swear to God.
A really hairy Arnold.
Startled by the oncoming form and by the sounds of its heavy feet, she quickly retreated to her car. She jumped in and was attempting to drive away when the beast jumped onto her trunk.
Shit.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Yeah.
Luckily, it was too wet for the creature to hang on, and it fell off onto the pavement. Dorothy returned to the site. Later on that evening, because she was taking a young girl out for trick-or-treating and saw the large form on the side of the road.
Wait, so she went out again?
Yes, but she had to go by that road. This is
Right.
an actual road to get to someplace. When she saw the creature moving, she ordered the child to lock her door and drove quickly away from the scene. So
it just camped out and waited for her. It was
She-
like,
Yeah.
she'll
she
be
had
back.
she had no idea what she had seen, but wondered if perhaps it might be a bear, maybe angry or wounded because she
Yeah.
had hit it with her car.
Bears can stand up, right? Don't
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can,
and they
yes.
and they can walk upright.
Regardless, she told a neighbor about the encounter the next day and showed her the scratched car because there were big scratches along the trunk of her car. As word spread, more local people began to step forward with their own encounters with the beast dating back to 1989. 1 year in the fall of that year, 24-year-old bar manager Lorianne Endrizi was rounding a curve on Bray Road, just a half a mile from the site of the later incident, and saw what she thought was a person kneeling and hunched over on the side of the road. When she slowed down, she took a closer look at the figure on the passenger side of the car. She was no more than 6 feet away from it at the time. The sighting lasted for about 45 seconds, and she stated that she clearly saw a beast with grayish-brown hair, fangs, and pointed ears. His face was long and snoutly like a wolf. Let's go to the next part.
And then he walked off and blew down some pigs' houses, and then that was the last I saw of him.
So she also noted that even though the car's headlights were pointed ahead down the roadway, the creature's eyes glowed with a yellowish color, just like an animal's will do when reflected car lights. Like Doris Gibson, she also saw how wide and powerful the creature's chest and build were. She went on to add that the arms of the beast were rather strange. They were jointed as a man's would be, and it seemed to be holding food with its palms upward, completely unlike any animal that she had ever heard of. The arms were muscular, just like someone who had worked out, and the creature seemed to have human-like fingers with claws on the ends. She did not notice any sort of tail, but did say that its back legs were behind it like a person would be if kneeling. She was completely unnerved by the sighting, and she later stated in an interview that the creature appeared to be so human-like that it was scary. Her own answer to what she had seen was that it had been a freak of nature. She had no idea what it could have been until she saw a book at the library that had an illustration of a werewolf in it. It so closely resembled what she had seen on Bray Road that her eyes seemed to pop out of her head. She was so scared from what that had been.
Shit.
I
I was gonna say it already, just like from the descriptions of it that people have given, it sounds more werewolf-like than descriptions of Wendigo.
Correct.
That I have heard.
Correct. And there are different types of descriptions for the Wendigo that I've found in different Native American cultures.
Most of the ones I've seen anyway, they're usually spindlier.
Right.
They're lanky.
Right.
Maybe it's a Wendigo.
This one has the spindly legs in the back, but it's more
Right.
it's more bulky in the front.
I gotcha.
So after hearing Dorset Gibson's account by way of rumor, Indrisi contacted the Lakeland Animal Shelter, and her mother contacted a local newspaper writer named Linda Godfrey, hoping that publicity might encourage other people who had encountered the creature to come forward. The story that followed was published on December 29, 1991, and while it contained basic information about the Gibson and Indrisi sightings, it also included some scanty information on other sightings. It also mentioned that chickens had been stolen and that another family who lived near Bray Road had experienced their own close encounter with the beast. So let's go to the next part.
This is sounding a little bit more like El Chupacabra.
But a lot more north and with a ripped Wendigo.
Yeah,
Right.
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I wonder what Jimmy goes to.
Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. Just the summer before the wolf creature had been reported, a dozen or so animals had been dumped in a ditch along nearby Willow Road. John Fredrickson, the human officer from Delavan, stated that he had believed several of the animals had been used in cult rituals. While Lynn Police Chief James Jensen dismissed this idea in June of '91, Fredrickson insisted that officials were missing the point. According to the officer, some of the animals had ropes tied around their back legs.
Nope.
And their throats were slit.
Nope.
Some were decapitated and others were dismembered in various ways.
Spooky.
The most recently killed animal was a dog that had its chest cavity split open and its heart removed.
Oh.
Several of the animals matched descriptions of recently missing pets, and they certainly had not been killed by passing cars. The mutilated carcasses were almost immediately covered up, literally. The site was quickly bulldozed, and Fredrickson's investigation was ended, but it not end the whispers and rumors that followed.
And they think that was definitely connected to the...
They think it might have been. I don't know why.
Could have been like
Right.
something to
And
summon
there
or something dead.
Right.
There were rumors of occult and satanic rituals in the area years before this had happened.
Okay.
So they don't know if something had been summoned or what. But an earlier sighting of something was made by a dairy farmer from Elkhorn named Scott Bray, who reported seeing a strange-looking dog in his pasture near Bray Road in September or October of '89. He said that the beast was larger and taller than a German shepherd and had pointed ears, a hairy tail, and long gray and black hair. He added that it was built very heavy in the front, as if it had a strong chest. He followed the dog to a large pile of rocks, but the creature vanished. He did find that it had left behind huge footprints, though, which disappeared into the grass of the pasture. Russell Gelst of Elkhorn also reported seeing the creature about the same time as the Scott Bray sighting. He was about a block or so away from an overgrown area, and when he heard weeds being rustled, he looked up to see a creature emerge from the thicket. It was standing on its hind feet and then took 2 wobbly steps forward before guests began to run away.
Well, yeah. When you're encountered with that, you have 2 options, really, and one of them involves being devoured by a werewolf. So
It's the worst one.
yeah, and I feel like running away was the appropriate response.
Absolutely. There were several instances where the creature did start to run towards the people, but then stopped and went the other direction. But these people didn't stay around to find out how long they followed him. They just took off, which I would too. So this next sighting happened with some schoolgirls. The sightings occurred around 4:30 p.m. as Heather, the young lady, and several of her friends were returning home from sledding near Loveland Road, about a mile and a half southeast of the intersection of Bray and Hospital Roads. They happened to look up and see what appeared to be a large dog walking along a creek in snow-covered cornfield. Heather estimated that it was about a block away from them. Thinking that it was a dog, the children began calling to it. The creature looked at them, and then it stood up on its hind legs. She described it as being covered with long, silverfish-like brownish hair. The beast took 4 awkward steps in their direction and then dropped down on all 4s and began to run at the children.
Fuck!
In what Heather later described as being a bigger leap than dogs run. It followed the group about halfway to the Bowie home, about 250 yards away, before it ran off in another direction. Thank goodness.
I don't think I could outrun a dog.
No.
Much less
Well, a
much
wolf,
less a
yeah.
wolf. Yeah.
Well, evidently it wasn't going too fast.
So, but it's only ever seen one at a time.
Well,
Correct.
Not necessarily. There are instances where they think there might be 2 different there's 2 creatures, but they don't think that they're the same. They think
Okay.
that there's another type of creature out there, and they want them studied separately instead of trying to lump them into the same.
Okay.
But this is basically the beast of Bray Road. This is the werewolf, like the dog, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So witness also insisted that it was not a dog, although some suggested that it could have been a wolf-dog hybrid of some sort. But how does this explain the creature's habit of kneeling, walking on 2 legs, and holding on to food with the flat of its paws turned upward? Also, another lady claimed that the animal had human-like fingers. The idea that the monster may have been a bear is also called into question, and while bears do occasionally walk for short distances on 2 legs, they do not hold food with their palms up, they do not jump onto moving cars, and very rarely do they pursue or try to attack humans.
Right, unless you fuck with the cubs or something.
Yes. So what could it have been? To find possible answers to this, we have to look outside of the normal confines of zoology. Researcher Richard Hendricks points to a creature that was suggested by Lauren Coleman and Jerome Clark called the Shunkawarakeen. The creature was said to have lived in the wilds of the upper Midwest and was a wolf-like animal that was known to the Native American population and to the early settlers in the region. The creature was named by the Low Iowa Indians, and its name meant carrying off dogs.
Okay.
Little is known for sure about the creature, but apparently it was quite fierce. So,
This is creeping me the fuck out.
don't I usually?
That's true. Yeah.
Interestingly, though, little is known about the creature. Okay, a mounted specimen of one was exhibited at various times in the West Yellowstone area and in a small museum near Henry Lake in Idaho.
Like somebody had hunted, shot, and killed.
Interestingly, the
Taxidermy
dog hyena type creature fits many of the descriptions of witnesses in southeastern Wisconsin, including its strange look, which would have made many compare it to a wolf or a dog mix, its dark shaggy fur, and a sloping weakness to its back legs, which was noted in almost every report.
Do you have a picture of this?
You can find one, yes, and I will pull it up for you because basically that's what I've got. So what do we think? Do we think a possibility?
You know, I
It's-
mean, possibly. Yeah, I
Something out there because there's too many people who've
Right.
seen it.
and so if like this creature that was on exhibit in Yellowstone, right?
Right.
So if this creature had been found, by settlers and the Native American community years and years prior, oh, for fuck's sake,
Ugh. Such a grainy picture, but it's
yeah,
so spaghetti.
Dee's showing us a picture here. Yeah. And then maybe they thought it was went extinct.
Yes.
Maybe they thought they hunted it into extinction.
Correct.
And then did not. And so maybe it's a real thing. Maybe not a werewolf per se, but like some kind of canine animal of some kind.
Right.
That is fucking enormous and absolutely
And they are
fucking
yes,
terrifying.
Yes. And there's something obviously out there because it's not just adults seeing it, it's kids, it's farmers. Right. It goes all the way back. I mean, for them to even go all the way back to where they call it the carrying off dogs creature and stuff. So it's been around for a long time, or there have been at least.
Right.
So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I know. Again, that kind of ties in with your one.
Because, I'm sure I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but like, 10 years ago, I saw something like that.
Yeah.
Outside of my parents, we had they still have a house that's like kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's like 5 miles from any town even, out in the country. And I was walking in, I saw something that fucking looked like what they're describing. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think that it's more possible. I don't think a werewolf. I don't think a person who turns into a wolf, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
something that could
some kind of wolf creature.
Wolf creature, and that's what they talk about it. Yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I like those kind of stories.
Certainly nothing we can really rule out there, especially with so many sightings.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right.
But like, see, the problem with that is every single time that there's like a sighting, and then more people come forward and they're like, oh, well, a few years ago I saw. Like when things like that happen, I always have to take it with a grain of salt because,
of course, yeah,
Bigfoot sightings. Right. Were not very popular until the 30s or 40s.
Right.
Mongolian deathworm sightings.
Mongolian deathworm sightings. And I mean, so when one guy came forward and is like, I saw this weird fucking thing, and then suddenly we're inundated with all these Bigfoot sightings to where like Theodore Roosevelt is telling a Bigfoot story.
Well, and that goes back a little bit to what they talked about. They talked about the people who first told the stories of the creature, the Beast of Bray Road. And this is a country road.
Yeah.
It's out in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And what did these people have to gain except ridicule and, negative publicity?
Mm-hmm. So
the fact that they told it and told it to competent people, I have to give, they saw something.
Yeah.
What it was, I have no idea. But there was something out there. Now, of course, the sightings have died down some. But these people haven't changed their stories. The kids who were involved haven't changed their stories. Mm-hmm. It's like it's burnt into their brains what they saw, and it hasn't changed.
It's really not something you can disprove unless someone comes out and says,
correct.
Hey, I was out there in a werewolf mask doing some Scooby-Doo stuff the whole time.
Well, and they,
Joke's
they talked
on
about,
you.
well, they talked about somebody dressing up, but the possibility of that, even though it could be a possibility, to me doesn't make any sense because you don't know who's going to go down that road and when.
Sure.
Yeah.
So are they just living out
They're
there
just-
in the
they're
ditch,
just hanging out.
hanging
Yeah.
out in a beast suit, waiting for somebody to come by and having,
oh shit! Hey,
yeah.
Hey guys! Hey, here
I mean,
comes somebody.
yeah.
Hey, get the helmet on there. Yeah, there you go.
Right. But anyway, so that was my story. That's my story.
Kind of weird to me how it holds the food like palm up, like what?
Like a person would eat.
Yeah,
like
you're holding an apple and.
I mean, I'd kind of hold it like palm towards me if I'm eating an apple.
Well, that's what it.
Well,
they're
yeah,
saying
sure,
that
yeah.
It's,
like
because most creatures don't pick up their food and carry. A raccoon. Now think about a raccoon because they have human-like fingers.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they pick up their food, they wash it, and they eat it like that.
They've got that thumb.
Correct. Most animals don't eat that way.
Yeah.
They'll pick it up
and especially not a dog-like creature.
Correct.
Maybe it's a really big raccoon.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Wisconsin's giant raccoon.
And we've lost it.
It's the new cryptid, the giant raccoons of Wisconsin.
Right.
Well, and the fact that it like the legs, the way they describe the legs,
Mm-hmm.
it's just weird.
Yeah.
Just weird. So massive chest area, the arms big, and then Anyway, so that's the beast.
All right. Well, Hey, thank you guys for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having us.
Good luck sleeping tonight, I guess.
I
There isn't a
probably
full
won't be.
moon yet. Usually my stories freak him out anyway.
Yeah,
So.
it's true. Yeah.
I thought it was a fun one.
Oh yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure. Hey, well, thanks again for being on the show, you guys.
you.
Listeners,
welcome.
thanks for listening. You can check us out on the internet. We're on Instagram and Twitter at AntiFictionCast. You can email us with all of your cryptid sightings and whatnot at antifictioncast@gmail.com. And I guess we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
So yeah.